we'll study this example. Determine whether the following supplies amount to composite supplies. There are two examples he has given us. We need to tell whether out of these two examples, which is a composite supply and which is a mixed supply. The first example is a hotel provides 3 days, 2 nights package, wherein the facility of breakfast and dinner is provided along with the room accommodation. So this is the first example. A hotel is there. If you pay some charges or amount, it provides you 3 days and 2 nights of package with the facility of breakfast, dinner, along with the room accommodation. Right? And the second example, a toothpaste company has offered the scheme of free toothbrush along with the toothpaste. Right? Many a times when you go in the market, you'll find that to do some more advertisement or to have some kind of schemes to the customers, apart from the just toothpaste, they offer a toothbrush along with the toothpaste. So here in these two examples, which is a composite supply and which is a mixed supply, that we need to find out. Okay. As per section 2, subsection 30 of CGST Act, under composite supply, two or more taxable of goods or services or both or any combination thereof are naturally bundled and supplied in a conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is the principal supply. In the light of the provision, we may conclude the following, right? As we can see the definition, when two or more taxable of supply of the goods or services or both any combination thereof are naturally bundled and supplied in a conjunction, where one will be the principal supply. So the supply of breakfast, dinner with the accommodation in the hotel are naturally bundled here. If you go to some hotel or if you go to some other place for some hill station or some tour, etc., then you will be going to breakfast, you will be going to dinner, you will be going to lunch, right? Accommodation is provided. So these all things naturally are bundled at one particular goods or one particular services. Therefore, such kind of supply qualifies or called as composite supply. Right? The example, the first example, the answer of it is the composite supply. But the second example, the supply of toothbrush along with the toothpaste, right? If you buy a toothpaste, you will get toothbrush free, is not naturally bundled. If you give toothpaste separately, toothbrush separately, then also they will accept, or then also the customer are going to buy your product. This is the kind of scheme to attract more number of customers or to do kind of a marketing you are doing it. Therefore, it does not qualify as the composite supply. In fact, it is a mixed supply. So two different product you are supplying in one particular product. It is called as mixed supply, and it is not a composite supply kind of things. The next is state whether the following supplies would be treated as supply of goods or supply as of services as per Schedule 2 of CGST Act. We have seen three schedules, Schedule Roman number 1, 2, and 3. Out of that, in this example, what we need to do is there are some 5 transactions he has given us. Out of those 5 transactions, we need to classify which are the supply of goods and which are the supply of services. Okay, let us see the first type. Title in the goods under an agreement with stipulation that property shall pass at a future date. There is a title in the goods, ownership in the goods under an agreement will which stipulates the property shall pass at a future date. The property will pass to some person at some future date. That is the title in the goods. Second is transfer of rights in the goods Without transfer of title in the goods means only rights are being transferred. The ownership or title is not transferred. Transfer of title in goods immediately, right? The transfer of title in the goods, ownership in the goods is transferred immediately. Renting of immovable property, the job work performed by a job worker. So these are 5 different kind of transactions he has given us. Now, what we need to do is, as per schedule 2, we need to classify which are the supply of goods and which are the supply of services. Okay, if you see the first title, first transaction, title in the goods under an agreement which stipulates the property shall pass at a future date. Here, this is supply of goods, because the property, whatever you are having, right, this is still in the form of agreement, right? And here you are transferring the property itself. So the property, in the sense, these are property, you can see the movable property is there, immovable property is there. These are in form of tangible property, so we can treat those all property in to the some extent as the goods. So it is supply of goods as per schedule 2. Similarly, transfer of rights in the goods without transfer of title in the goods. We are just transferring some of the rights. We are not transferring entire property to someone. Only few of the rights are being transferred. That means he will not become owner, and he don't have right to sell the goods. He can just either use the goods, he can be treated as a bailee. So he just have a limited power or access towards the goods. So here, such kind of thing we call, in as per schedule 2, is supply of services. Similarly, transfer of title in the goods immediately. So the transfer of ownership or title in the goods will happen from one person to another person immediately, without any wastage of time. So here, when the property will transfer or title of the goods transfers to one person, from one person to another person, title is transferred, ownership is transferred. So even that particular case is also a supply of goods, because your title of the goods means the transfer of ownership. Renting of immovable property. Okay, you're renting your immovable property. It may be complexes, it may be apartment, it may be house, anything. So some of the immovable properties are there. So those immovable property you're renting, and you're getting a rent out of it. Now, is that a supply of goods or services? It is a supply of services, because you will rent your property, and after renting, what you will get? You will get either a rent, you will get a lease value, whatever. But after having a particular period of time, like 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year, again a property will get back to you, or again you are going to receive back the property. So renting of any kind of immovable property as per schedule 2 is a supply of services. Then the job work performed by a job worker. If any job work is performed, right, by any of the job worker, some job is being given to any of the worker, he has performed it, right? Now he submitted you the work, and you paid a part of consideration as money, cash, or you give him a check, whatever you did. Finally, that kind of job work what is did for you, it is also a kind of supply of services. It is not a supply of goods. Whenever a work is being done by any employee or job worker, he will render his services, he will not provide you any kind of goods. So as per schedule 2, it is also a supply of services. Now let us see few more examples. State in which schedule 2 or 3 the following supplies have been covered. Also determine in which category they shall be classified. So first of all, we need to classify in which particular schedule they will come, either schedule 2 or schedule 3. And also we need to determine whether they will come under supply of goods or supply of services. Okay, or they come under the third category, neither supply of goods nor supply of services. So we need to classify schedule 2 or schedule 3 first. Then with that we need to classify whether they are supply of goods or they are supply of services, or they are neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Okay, let us go with the first transaction. Goods forming part of business assets are transferred by a business so as no longer to form a part of those assets without any consideration, right? There are some goods which are forming a part of your business assets. Now you are transferring that from your business. Those will not be called in future as your assets of your business. Why? Because you are transferring it for some consideration or a value, right? This is the first transaction. Second is services by an employee to the employer in the course of or in a relation to his employment, right? When a services is provided by an employee to the employer in course of the relationship in the employment, right? When he does for the sake of his job or employment, that kind of services. Then services by a court or tribunal established under any law for the time being in force, right? If any services is provided by any court or any tribunal established in some areas under any law or for any kind of time being in force, then services, temporary transfer of intellectual property rights. Temporarily will transfer our intellectual property rights. Then service of funerals, burial, crematorium, or mortuary, including transportation of deceased. Right. So what these all are, like whether it are goods related to supply of goods or services or any other things. Lease rental collected, and finally sale of land. So these are the 7 transactions we need to classify as per schedule 2 and 3. Then we need to classify which are supply of goods and which are supply of services, and then neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Okay, the first part is goods forming the part of business assets are transferred by the business so as no longer to form the part of those assets without any consideration. So here this forms the schedule 2, right? This comes under schedule 2, and this is supply of goods, right? Supply of goods. Generally, when there is a supply of goods or a services, it comes under schedule 2. When there is neither goods nor services, it comes under schedule 3. Okay, so you are supplying any kind of a goods which are your part of the business. And now see, the important thing is that you are supplying that without any consideration, whether you supply it without consideration or with consideration, those were forming the part of your business assets. So it comes as supply of goods. Similarly, services by an employee to the employer in the course of or in relation to his employment. Now see, the services what an employee is giving to the employer, that is the part of his job. Now whatever services like employee is giving to the employer, whether he is a teacher, whether he is a software engineer, or he is some other employee like web developer or some other employee. Now those employees, they are getting salary from the employer. That employee cannot tell us that is a supply of services, because you are being paid salary, and for your salary you have to work, not as a supply of your services. So here it will neither be treated as neither a goods nor a services. Now apart from some employee, if some other expert person is there, or some other person who is outside the organization, maybe is giving his job, giving his expertise, who is an architect, who is an engineer, or who is a lawyer, who is a chartered accountant, who is a business consultant, they are not employee in some cases. To the some extent, if they are not employee, if they give any kind of services, such kind of things, to the some extent, or such kind of things will come as supply of services. But here service is given by an employee to the employer, that is a part of his routine work. So as per schedule 3, that is not a neither a goods nor a services. Similarly, services by a court or tribunal established under any law for the time being in force. Now this will also come under schedule 3, neither goods nor services. Why a court is been established? Why a tribunal law has been established, because they ultimately have to give you justice. Judge has to be there in the court. Now, if the court also tells that we are giving you a supply of services, if any kind of tribunal established under any law, if they are telling you that we are giving you a supply of services, so that is not correct. Because if court is giving you any services, or if any tribunal established under any law, if they are giving any services, that should not be treated as supply of services, because they are ultimately for the objective of protecting the interest of the people, right? And for a judge, for a court, it is a legislative power is given by the Constitution of India. They have full right to give a decision in some of the favor. So it neither becomes a goods nor becomes any kind of services. They are neither a goods nor a services as per Schedule 3. Similarly, temporary transfer of intellectual property rights. There are various intellectual property rights. Like you are having one or two additional kind of patents, right? One patent is there with you, additional patent is there, additional copyrights are there, or any other kind of intellectual property rights are there. Now what you are thinking is that you want to transfer your copyrights or intellectual property rights to someone, right? That too for temporary reasons. Now this can be treated as supply of services. If you transfer your intellectual property rights like patent, copyright, or any other kind of intellectual property rights, then the other person may be giving you some amount of consideration. If you transfer patents, he will be giving you some 1 lakh or 2 lakh rupees for 1 year. If you transfer your copyrights to use to have an access towards your other properties, intellectual properties, then he may be giving you 2 to 3 lakh rupees. So here those all things are treated as supply of services. Those are supply of services. Then services of funeral, burial, crematorium, or mortuary, including a transport of deceased person, right? If anybody is engaged in this, right, of a funeral of a person, right? Because right now, if you see, because of the pandemic, many people they are coming forward for these all activities, for funeral, burial, or crematory or mortuary, including the transportation also the people are providing. Because due to the pandemic, the people are having a fear in the mind, or they are having a fear that if they go near a deceased person, or if they go near a dead person, they will also get infected. So if some social people are there who are doing all those activities, they are giving him bath, they are giving him they are giving the bath to the dead person, everything they are doing, taking that person even to the mortuary. So everything they are doing. Now those all things should not be treated as supply of services. As per Schedule 3, if anybody has arranged an ambulance, right, ambulance which will take a dead body from home to the mortuary, right, or if anybody has arranged a group of a person to do a funeral activities, their all services are not the supply of services. Those are neither goods nor services, which are taken under Schedule 3. Then similarly, lease rentals collected. If anybody is collecting any lease rentals, right, you have a property, whether you have a movable property or immovable property, especially like land, building, right, machines. Now you will give those all things on lease basis. And after getting the lease rental collected, that particular thing is a supply of services, because you are providing your properties, you are supplying your properties, and after supplying your properties you are getting the lease rental collection. So that is a kind of supply of services. Similarly, sale of land. If you sell your land, that is also neither a goods nor a services. Why? Because see, when you sell your land is a immovable property first of all, and if it is an immovable property, it has to be covered by the Immovable Property Act. And it is whatever income you have to get on that, you have to pay a different set of tax on it. You have to pay a wealth tax, right? You have to pay other kind of tax like income tax. If you sell your land, if you get any kind of gain, you won't be paying a tax under GST. That will become a capital gain for you, right? You're studied in income tax. If you sell a land or any kind of capital assets for you, if you get a gain out of it, that gain is a capital gain for you. And out of a capital gain, it is a third or fourth head of an income tax. On that, you will be paying your income tax, right? So neither goods or services we are going to take for the sale of land. Now we'll see some of the transactions which are treated as CGST, SGST, or some other things. Okay, we'll see the first transaction. Supply of goods by Varat of Delhi to Mr. Kailash of Delhi. Right? There are two parties here. First is Varat of Delhi and second is Kailash of Delhi. These are two parties. And now one party is staying in Delhi, the other is also staying in Delhi. So the type of GST applicable is CGST, first type. And the second type of GST applicable is Delhi GST. There are three states in India, they have their own state GSTs, right? Those are Delhi, Pondicherry, and Jammu and Kashmir. They have their own state legislatives, right? Delhi, Pondicherry, and Jammu and Kashmir. Apart from these three things, of other union territories, they don't have their own state legislatives. So they have to pay UTGST. Okay, so Delhi it is there. So first of all, they have to pay CGST as well as Delhi GST. Then Raman of Mumbai provided services to Bhushan of Pune. So one person is there in Mumbai and other is there in Pune, which means in Maharashtra itself. So first of all, CGST, and then the second type of GST is Maharashtra GST. The second type of GST is Maharashtra GST. Daya of Goa sent goods to Abhijit of Goa. So both the person you see, first person is staying in Goa, Daya of Goa. He sent the goods to Abhijit of Goa. So here CGST is applicable and Goa GST is applicable. Goa GST is applicable. Next, Mr. Raman of Chandigarh provided services to Mr. Ishita of Chandigarh, right? So Raman is also staying in Chandigarh and Ishita, she is also staying in Chandigarh. Now, first of all, first type of tax applicable is CGST. But here, Chandigarh is a union territory, but Chandigarh doesn't have their own state legislative. So in that case, Chandigarh GST is not applicable. There, UTGST is applicable, right? UTGST is applicable. Mr. Karthik of Pondicherry supplied goods to Mr. Naira of Pondicherry, right? So Karthik is also supplier is also there in the Pondicherry and the recipient is also there in the Pondicherry. So CGST is applicable. Similarly, Pondicherry GST is also applicable to the tax. Mr. Meena of Jaipur supplied goods to Mr. Sohrab of Udaipur, right? Now Meena is also there in Jaipur and Sohrab, he is there in Udaipur. Now both of them, they are there in Rajasthan, right? Jaipur and Udaipur both are in Rajasthan. So first tax is applicable is CGST and second is Rajasthan GST. Next, seventh type is Mr. Murari of Lakshadweep supplied services to Mr. Krishna of Lakshadweep. Okay, so the first party is Murari, who is staying in Lakshadweep. Similarly, he supplied the services to Krishna, Mr. Krishna of Lakshadweep. So the first kind of tax applicable is CGST. As we know, Lakshadweep is also a union territory, but it doesn't have their own state legislative. Hence, UTGST is applicable. Last, Akash of Agra supplied goods to Krishna of Mathura. So both are there in UP, right? Agra is there. Agra is also situated in UP. Similarly, Mathura is also situated in UP. So the type of tax applicable is CGST and UP GST, right? Uttar Pradesh GST. So these are the type of tax applicable for these